Yeah, we're live. Hi guys. Let me just find it. Found it pretty quick. Okay, that looks it. Let's take it back. Let's hit the volume.
For nearly 2,000 years, the story of Jesus of Nazareth has captivated millions, yet an enigmatic chapter in his life remains shrouded in mystery. Between the ages of 12 and 30, Jesus seemingly vanishes from history, a period commonly referred to as the lost years. The Bible is silent about these 18 formative years, and scholars have long pondered where he went and what he learned during this time. Could it be that Jesus embarked on a profound journey of spiritual discovery, traveling to distant lands to unlock the deepest mysteries of human consciousness? Recent discoveries of ancient texts, esoteric traditions, and spiritual knowledge hint at a tantalizing possibility. Jesus may have ventured far beyond Judea to places.
Hi Phil, good to see you, mate.
Tibet, Egypt,
Sorry I'm a bit late.
where he studied with the wisest spiritual
Thanks to your
masters
friend
of his
Pamela
time.
the other day too, bro.
His teachings on love, compassion, and inner transformation bear remarkable similarities to the spiritual philosophies of the East. In this video, we will explore the fascinating theory that Jesus spent his lost years preparing for his role as the Christ through intense spiritual training in these mystical lands. We will journey across ancient civilizations, delving into the sacred wisdom Jesus is believed to have acquired and the ways in which it shaped his ministry. We will also examine how his father's spirit, Joseph, may have guided him on this path, and how the esoteric teachings Jesus may have absorbed could hold the keys to awakening humanity to higher consciousness.
Okay, this is driving me
The Bible's
mad when
last
it does
mention of
this.
Jesus' early life occurs when he is 12 years old, astonishing scholars at the temple in Jerusalem with his profound understanding of spiritual matters. But after this episode, the Gospels go silent for the next 18 years, until Jesus re-emerges at around 30, beginning his public ministry by preaching, performing miracles, and ultimately being crucified. This long gap has led to centuries of speculation, giving rise to theories about where Jesus was and what he was doing during these lost years. The traditional view held by many Christian scholars is that Jesus remained in Nazareth, living
Darren, good to see you, bro.
under the guidance of his father, Joseph, until he was called to his ministry. However, this interpretation has left many spiritual seekers unsatisfied, particularly when considering the extraordinary depth of wisdom and spiritual insight Jesus demonstrated during his public ministry. Was it possible that such an exceptional spiritual figure spent his youth in obscurity, or could it be that he was undergoing rigorous spiritual training, preparing for his role as a world teacher? Many esoteric sources and alternative spiritual traditions suggest that the lost years were not a period of normalcy, but rather one of intense spiritual preparation. According to these theories, Jesus embarked on a pilgrimage that...
When you think about this, it's true. He did do a big pilgrimage when he was in his teens because he went missing. I hope this delivers a story.
Took him far beyond Judea, traveling to regions known for their ancient wisdom and spiritual teachings. His journey is said to have included time spent in India, Tibet, Egypt, and Persia, where he studied.
India was Thomas, who was martyred in India.
Studied with masters of Eastern philosophies.
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
Spiritual practices and esoteric knowledge that would later define his teachings. One of the most compelling theories about Jesus' lost years suggests that he traveled to India, a land renowned for its ancient spiritual wisdom. During the 1st century, India was a hub of intellectual and spiritual activity, home to sages, saints, and spiritual masters who had perfected the art of meditation and the pursuit of moksha. It is believed that Jesus, known as Isa in some ancient Indian texts, spent several years in India learning the principles of Dharma, reincarnation, and the oneness of all.
Unless the Jews not the Jews, unless the Muslims call their own dude out, it doesn't count.
All beings. The earliest mention of this theory can be traced back to Nicholas Notovich, a Russian writer who claimed to have discovered ancient manuscripts in a Tibetan monastery that chronicled the life of Saint Isa, a figure remarkably similar to Jesus. According to Notovich's controversial 1894 book, The Unknown Life of Jesus Christ, Jesus traveled through India, studying with Brahmin priests and Buddhist monks who taught him the secret.
There's no way on earth Jesus would have been taught by these dudes. So I don't think this is a good video, guys.
Of cosmic consciousness, compassion, and non-attachment. In cities like Varanasi, one of the oldest spiritual centers in India, Jesus is believed to have studied the sacred texts of the Vedas, learning about the soul's eternal nature and the importance of union with.
No, I said the Muslim call him Isa. So that guy was wrong. I think he said it was the Hindus that said Isa, but he's wrong. It's the Muslims that say Isa. And their Isa, their Jesus, is not our Jesus. It's like the Catholic Jesus. He's not our Jesus. I'll always be on the right side of righteousness, Shawnee. You should know that by now.
With a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all life. His later teachings on love, forgiveness, and the inner kingdom of God bear striking resemblances to the Hindu concept of Advaita, which emphasizes the one.
I've done my study on these guys. I set them up beautifully, Shawnee, the Muslims I'm talking about, and the Catholics. No one defends their faith better than the Catholics. I'll give them their credit. They defend their faith.
Of all existence. In the northern region of Kashmir, it is said that Jesus deepened his understanding of Buddhism, learning the meditative practices of Tibetan monks. Here, he would have encountered teachings on the cessation of suffering and the cultivation of loving kindness, both core principles of Buddhism that resonate strongly with Jesus's later messages of universal love and compassion. Through his time in India and Kashmir, Jesus likely absorbed profound.
I'm actually not sure what they believe yet, but I'll be honest, I don't like the way it's going.
Spiritual insights that shaped the core of his ministry. Another significant stop on Jesus's spiritual pilgrimage is believed to have been Tibet, a region known for its rich tradition of tantric
100%.
Buddhism and Bon practices. The Tibetan landscape is imbued with spiritual energy, and for centuries, it has been a place where seekers of enlightenment have journeyed to unlock the secrets of the mind, body, and spirit. During his time in Tibet, Jesus is thought to have studied with lamas and Bon masters who introduced him to the esoteric practices of Tantric Buddhism. Tantra. So,
Darren, do you actually believe Jesus is the Son of God?
Focuses on the cultivation of subtle energies within the body and the mastery of the mind, offering a path to spiritual awakening through the direct experience of non-dual awareness. By
using the coast, they draw up an example, and it's quite good, how Jesus and his apostles, when they're in that boat that was rocking and tipping, they were on their way to somewhere in Spain, what was a huge cemetery, and that's why Jesus said to so many demons, he cast them into the pigs, because there's so many demons, but he protected the honourable,
ending the ego
if that makes
and
sense.
recognizing the emptiness of the self.
I can hardly talk, my voice is so hoarse.
Practitioners of Tantra can attain enlightenment and merge with the divine.
Yeah,
Jesus' later teachings on eternal life, the kingdom of heaven within, and the transcendence of material attachments suggest a strong resonance with the Tibetan belief in the cycle of samsara and the pursuit of liberation.
See, you can't say that, guys, and use scripture. You just can't say, I'm not aiming this at you, I'm aiming this at them.
His ability to perform miracles and heal the sick may have been influenced by his mastery of tantric techniques, such as the control of prana through meditation and breath control.
Oh my, okay, I'm going to look for something else.
The Bon tradition, which predates Buddhism in Tibet, also played a key role in shaping Jesus' spiritual education. Bon shamans practiced energy healing and the manipulation of the life force through rituals, breathwork, and meditation, teachings that may have informed Jesus' own healing abilities. By studying with these Tibetan masters, Jesus would have gained a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit, and how to harness the subtle energies of the universe to bring about transformation. Jesus' journey also likely took him to Egypt, a land steeped in mystical traditions and the ancient knowledge of the Egyptian mystery schools.
Just looking for something else to show instead of this. And we got Paul Begley's wife, not him, we got his wife up.
Egypt was the cradle of some of the most advanced spiritual sciences of the ancient world, particularly the...
That was true of the Muslims till the mid to 15th century. They were pretty scientifically smart as well.
Teachings of Thoth, also known as Hermes Trismegistus, whose writings formed the basis of Hermeticism. The Hermetic principles of alchemy, metaphysics, and the laws of the cosmos would have provided Jesus with a profound understanding of the macrocosm and microcosm, the belief that the universe is reflected within each individual. It is believed that during his time in Egypt, Jesus studied the sacred sciences of alchemy, learning how to transmute the elements of the physical world and gain mastery over the material plane. The rites of the Great Pyramid are thought to have played a significant role in his spiritual initiation, with Jesus undergoing symbolic death and rebirth as part of his
Okay, guys, I can't take any more of that. Shit, what have I lined up? I know what. Where is it? Where's all that? Man. Yeah, did you see Comey being indicted? Thank God. I'm just looking for something else to play, guys. I didn't like that last channel. Bear with me, guys.
Reptilians, fairy folk, the elven houses, and how all of these things are connected with the
Subdog is back at Subway, and this time it's got the whole bag.
Come on, how about? Come on.
For a limited time only.
Come on.
reptilians,
Jump up.
fairy folk, the elven houses,
Jump
and how
up,
all of
Lou.
these things are connected with the conspiracies that are shrouding the earth today We have a very interesting conversation we're going to share with you today. I had the opportunity to sit down with best-selling author Gary Wayne, the author of the book, The Genesis 6 Conspiracy. And we did a behind-the-scenes interview for our premium section that was just for our premium members. But I thought this was so interesting, I wanted to be able to share it with you as well.
I don't know who that guy is, Shawnee.
If you would like to be a premium member, we've got tons of uncensored content with all of the guests that we have on Encounter Today. You can get more information about that at encountertoday.com. But let's dive into this interview with Gary Wayne. Hello, Encounter family. So good to see you on the premium page. And thank you for supporting us and helping us be a blessing to the persecuted church around the world. Actually, we just got news that there was an attack, and you need to watch the message we did on Ephesus at our YouTube channel, where hopefully I'll go into some details on that attack in one of our churches and people that we know in Pakistan. And being a premium member helps us bring support and relief and strength to those who are suffering around the world. So thank you for standing in faith with us. And joining us here is the scholar, researcher, author.
Darren, I've been playing him all week, so I thought I'd give him a break. We love Gary Wayne here. I've got his book. He's got a second book out, but I've got his first one.
Author is an understatement when you look at this amazing book here, The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, How Secret Societies and the Descendants of Giants Plan to Enslave Humankind. A book everybody needs in their library. Part 1 and Part 2 has just come out. Wayne, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. Glad to be back.
It's being sarcastic. Many read this in the library. It's clever.
Well, one of the things we talk about is we always want to stay anchored in the Word, right? We always want to stay anchored in the Word.
Amen.
You've done an amazing job, though, of going into extra biblical sources and seeing what they believe, because it's really important to understand what they teach, what they believe, and a lot of the legends that are out there have some connection with the Word. And as far as some of the fringe elements that people may consider fringe, at least, are things like reptilians, fairy folk, Atlantis, the elven houses. Now we're getting into the Lord of the Rings. Yeah. So let's kind of do a rapid fire if we can, in whatever order you want to go in. I'm going to talk about reptilians, fairies, Atlantis, and elves. What are they? And what are we to make of these things?
Yeah.
I was going to do a video on missing the rapture. I thought I'd better not, though. All them people, which was probably about 3/4% of what Christians believed, they didn't get raptured. So they had sit-ins and everything. They had little crews with 5 heads, and they'd all talk about the coming rapture. And I thought, what are you going to do if it doesn't come? Which I suspected it wouldn't. It didn't come. So what are these guys all doing now? It's just crazy how things worked out.
Some very, very.
But I knew it wasn't the rapture.
Good question. So we don't have to believe what the polytheists believe. We need to understand they believe it, and it's what they do with that belief system that we need to understand, so that we can understand what's going to come at us if indeed we're in the victory generation, and I think that we probably are.
I'd say so.
Let's start with the reptilians. So that's got a few different sort of angles to it. So the first reptilian that we're kind of introduced in the Bible to is the Nahash, or the serpent in Eden.
Yeah.
And the serpent is this walking, talking, intelligent human being. And Nahash is rooted in another Hebrew word that means a necromancer or a sorcerer, words like that. So already been corrupt.
Walking, talking, intelligent human being.
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Being, not human.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yes.
Yeah.
And we know that this being is probably created on day 6. And if today is 1,000 years, let's say earlier into it, and created before the people of day 6 as humans are. And so in Revelation 3, he's the beast of the field. So again, that fits in with the creations, with all of the creatures in day 6. And so this is the being that is changed somewhat, like losing his arms, losing his legs, losing his ability to speak, losing its intelligence, and is forced to crawl on the ground that we know today. But it was thought to be, from the Gnostic perspective, how they understand the Nahash was as tall as a camel. Giant-like, but not a giant, so larger than humans. and were the first rulers of the fallen ones with that creation in day 6. And so when they lost their position, there's speculation from the polytheist side that fallen angels didn't let them all die. So they would have saved some, just as I leave that small crack open as we talked about in the first part of the show, that maybe some Nephilim survived the flood, or they've been recreated again after the flood. Is the other part.
Someone came up, not with us, someone on TV I was watching. I'm not sure if I was watching this one with you, but they claim that Nimrod hung off the ark, and that's how the giants survived. But personally, I can't see that. What's the point of killing the whole lot but leaving some alive on the boat? It makes sense.
And so we get in the polytheist belief system something called elementals. And in the New Testament, we understand that as rudiments.
So I didn't know elementals were real. He's talking about gnomes and such.
And or elementals. You'll see it translated as both, that trying to enslave us in this world. This is part of the visible hierarchy, but at a lower level than what the Nephilim and the Rephaim and the various tribes were in the Royals. And so they have this hierarchy on this earth. And there's 4 categories of elementals in the polytheist belief system. The 4th category is salamander, and they're taller than humans, but not giants. And they're generally depicted in the earth in tunnels, as you get all of these reports and rumors and stuff like that. So they could be in the tunnels, they could be in another dimension, they could be part of the alien deception as part of all these different creatures that we're going to see. And they are, if they've been recreated, they would be some form of spurious offspring like the Nephilim, right? So that's one part of how we might have reptilians. Within the bloodlines, though, most of the giants, not all, but a lot of the giants, and that we see in the pantheons around the world, is these serpentine gods, whether or not it's Quetzalcoatl is a feathered serpent god of the Quiché Maya, whether or not it is the dragon creator gods in China, whether or not it's Osiris depicted as a serpent, or the Uraeus gods or Canaan in the Middle East, or the Greek gods being depicted originally as serpents. This is understood to be a fallen watcher group that dominated the pantheons of the fallen ones at the top. And for people who aren't familiar with watcher, it does show up in the Bible. It shows up 4 times in the book of Daniel. The Hebrew word ayir, meaning watcher, and where you get a degraded watcher.
Wow, I never knew that. That watcher is actually a term in the Bible. That's encouraging, isn't it, guys?
Where it says satyr, as we would understand it, that's satyr, for a hairy, profile wife. So we need to be aware of some of these things, and that the seraphim were 6-winged, serpent-faced, copper-colored, fiery angels that worked for the altar within the fiery stones. And these are the watchers that rebelled. Not all of them, but these are the ones that did rebel, populated most of the upper levels of the pantheon. And when they procreated, and they...
Gabe, unless they got grapes. Greg, yeah, thank you.
Created their own oikotarians and created their serpentine look that they're worshipped as, they would pass on that DNA. And so the original kings before the flood and after the flood were depicted as serpents after their celestial mafia godfathers. And so even after...
Phil, they made Christianity look really bad the other day. I agree with you on that. Now, they saw set times, and we all know they didn't. It didn't happen. Probably about 50% of what I saw on here was all about the 23rd of September. And now it's not happened. What are they doing? Surely they're rethinking how they think.
After the flood, they would look the same. They don't live as long. They don't have that immortal physical body. The disembodied spirit is that counterfeit immortal spirit that doesn't go to sleep. like humans do, and then return to heaven to remain in that matter. And so this disembodied spirit isn't allowed to sleep, but it roams the earth, or it goes to, in the belief system of the polytheists, to their heaven if they have the right knowledge to get there, or they're in the pit prison in the sides, as some of the terrible ones are talked about. And so these are the giant kings that look like,
But we know they're all in hell.
like their fathers. And then after the flood, because of this change in the kind of giant, size, some of the powers, and the fertility issue, they have to intermarry. So that bloodline's going to become diluted. And over time, they lose their size and they lose that serpentine look. And so if you look at 1,000 years after the flood with Akhenaten, or Tutankhamun, as you go to a museum to see Akhenaten, just Google Akhenaten, and you're going to see that serpentine diluted face. It's a long protruding chin, high cheekbones. That's the fair look, the models with the high cheekbones, except that it's got this big conical head that is there that has elongated.
The big cobra head.
No sutures in it. And these large.
Do you remember about 2 months ago, they showed what was underneath the pyramid in Egypt? They claim there would be hydraulics underneath it. I wonder if it's true, because we haven't heard anything else about that.
Large wraparound eyes that would glow, because they were the shining ones. And they would actually light up a room with that sort of look. But you can see that diluted serpentine look. And so some people believe that the royals have a shape-shifting capability, and that they're actually still serpentine, but they give us a look through their shape-shifting capability of a human look. I don't have any evidence that.
And if you think, how does it turn reptilian into human? Just look at our octopus, how he can change shape and look like kelp. He can go from looking like an oxygen. He goes from looking like an octopus. Yeah.
That's the case. I only can make the case that serpentine look would come from their celestial mafia godfathers. And so, but the connection in the occult is that some of the other elementals, the 3 other groups that I talked about in book 1, have shape-shifting capability. So these are.
Hey, Kelly, good to see you.
Offspring of the gods as well in polytheist mythology, and there's 3 groups of them. And that you have good-looking ones, you have ugly ones, and you have mischievous ones. And in the ugly ones, you get these gray fairies that are understood as gnomes that, in their belief system, kept the knowledge, the genealogies, and the technology of the demigods and the angelic realm. And these are elemental groups again. And
these are the fairy folk.
These are the fairy folk. And I give a couple encounters in book 1 that if you didn't know it was a fairy gray gnome, you'd say it was a gray alien, because it's identical in the descriptions. And so expect that's part of that alien mythos as well. But now that leads into this word fairy. And so it can mean these little people, but it also means the fair folk. The fair folk are Tuatha De Danann. And the Tuatha De Danann are giants before the flood and giants also again after the flood as they show up.
Does anyone know if he's spoken about Sasquatch?
And that
Come on,
these are the fair
Jump
folk
up.
who control the destiny
Don't
of
just look at
humankind.
me. Hop up, we'll go. Come on.
And that if you look at like the writers of the
Come on,
Shade,
jump up.
SIDHE, there's 1,000 different ways to
Bloody
pronounce
hell.
that word.
I
You
can't
can
pick
see
up
an
if you don't
image
help
of that.
me.
And they kind of look like the kings of the Lord of the Rings that are depicted as white elves. And in the occult system, white elves are actually larger than that. They're the giants, they're the fairy folk, versus the dark elves, which would be part of the little ones. So in the Lord of the Rings, you get all of those types of beings that are being talked about in the occult understanding. So the Tuatha De Danann are thought to be the oldest sort of race in the world. They're the most noble race. That Vlad the Impaler that we talked about in the first part of the show would take his genealogies back. And they're typically blonde-haired and blue-eyed with pale skin, and red hair, hazel eyes, and pale skin.
Mm.
And these are the most predominant traits, with the red being a little more higher in the hierarchy in terms of how they would look at those traits. And so these are what they call in the Albigensian religion and the Cathar religion, as we connect that back to the Templars as being also bloodline royales, keeping this up. That was the religion of the Templars. And they looked at the Elven bloodline as the Magianic bloodline.
Okay.
So when you look at that word Elbi gens, that's the genealogy of Elbi, and Elbi means white and pale and hoary, and gens means genealogy back to a specific Nephilim patriarch, or specific patriarch, in this case, a royale. And Albigensian is the source word for that religion. And this is the Elven bloodline that they like to talk about, which is understood as elf or fairy, and the bloodline of the Tuatha De Danann that would present the dragon Messiah in their bloodlines and belief system. So how does that connect back to the Bible now? And so we have a marriage that we talked about in the first half between Eliphaz and Timnah to create Amalek. And Amalek is going to be part of the intermarriage of his bloodlines into like the Mitanni dynasty, the Kassites, and you have this Horine mixture. That Timnah is a Horine giant. Horine giants are red-haired, hazel-eyed, pale-skinned giants, and I make that case in book 2, versus the Amalekim and the Anakim, which were blonde-haired, blue-eyed, pale-skinned. And so we're having a red line, a red-haired variety bloodline started with a matriarchal pure blood, start a new dynasty. And these are the Dukes of Edom, as they're translated into English, which is a royal term. But what's interesting is it goes back to the Hebrew word Aleph. And the Catholic Encyclopedia, when I looked up information in there when I was doing research on this, they refer to these
What does
bloodlines
it look
as
like I'm doing? Does it look like what it
So
looks
we get that I am, which is typically a suffix that I'll use for angels and for the demigod offspring. And so that word Aleph is the root word for how writers like Gardner that I quote for, in terms of one of the genealogists of the royals, is the word that they adopt as elf. So this is a branch of those elven kings of this hybrid human Rephaim race, or Horine race in this particular case, that is going to try and usurp the blessings from Israel, try and wipe them from the face of the earth. And so this is the bloodline from the Western bloodlines and the allegories that they are raising up to present Antichrist for whenever that opportunity comes forward. So they take their bloodlines into 2 specific allegories. One is the dragon bloodline for the patriarch, and the other one is the fairy bloodline for the matriarchal bloodline. And that they believe that that gene and that blood type is passed on through the matriarch to carry on that descending descent.
And there are people and organizations, prominent organizations, people, wealthy individuals who actually believe that they're a part of that and are practicing ordering their life, order of events in their life to fulfill these things.
Absolutely. So you have the Credigens, which is the gens of the offspring of Zeus. So those bloodlines take theirs back to the Credigens from Zeus. You have the black nobility of Italy in 2 different formats. There's a junior and a lower, but the senior order is the Julia gens that goes back to the Caesars, like Augustus or the actual Caesar, and the senators and their bloodlines back to Romulus and Remus that are created by Greek or Roman gods, or basically just different names for the same god. And so you have these genses that are all around the world that they claim that genealogical descent from. And it's the gene that is used to create their blood type. So there's a lot of speculation that Rh negative is the bloodline of the Royals. And they said we can't insert an Rh negative bloodline into the positive bloodline if it's not there. How do you insert something that's not there? It's not that, it's the genes that are inserted through the intermarriage, through the hybrids. And so O negative would be the bloodline of the Windsors, for example.
Hmm.
And if you look at most of the presidents, I think all but Reagan, I don't know what Trump's bloodline was or Biden's bloodline is, but they're all Rh negative bloodlines, and they take their genealogies back, has been recorded in a lot of research, back to the Plantagenet. That's the junior offshoot of the Anjou, just as the Romanovs are a junior offshoot of the Buchanan intermarriage.
So are you suggesting, and I've heard this before, and I've never actually given it any credit, never dug any deeper into it, that all of the presidents, save one or two, were actually related?
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what they say. When you say that they, you're
Yeah.
not referring to conspiracy theorists, you're referring to the presidents themselves.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It is. But that's how they establish themselves within that culture, is the purity of your bloodline.
How they get risen to such a place of power and prominence.
Yes.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know more, and I know that you do, you've got to get the book where he walks you slowly through all of this. And it's highly footnoted. The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, Part 1 and Part 2. You got to get a copy. How do they find it, Gary?
Best way is through my website. It is the easiest and fastest way. So Genesis6conspiracy.com. Go to the buy now page. So if you want to get book one, you go to book one. There's a page for Canada, US, and international. And also you can link over to Amazon.com from that buy page, Amazon.ca, BarnesandNoble.com, and over to Amazon for the digital copy. And if you want to buy multiple books, there's discounts for multiples. I don't have it bundled together yet, so working to get that.
Come on,
done.
Moo, hop
But if you
up.
wanted, let's say, one of each and wanted to get discounts, just buy two of one,
on,
send me an
come on,
email, and tell me you want one of each,
Come up
and
and
I
meet
will
me,
send you that. Or
sweetheart.
if you wanted to buy 10, you want it split 7 and 3, or however you wanted to do it, buy 10 of one, do the same thing. I'll ship it
You
accordingly.
can't sit there. It's
Get a
right
hard
on my
copy if you
arm.
want it in your library, and then also get the digital copy, which is what I did as well, so that I can search. When you've got the Kindle version, you can just search a word, and it'll bring it up so you can study it all throughout the book. It's tremendously well researched. Gary Wayne, thank you for doing this work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, well done, Shawnee.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. God bless. There's all kinds of uncensored content, deep dives into scripture, as well as into fringe topics that we normally can't get to on our normal Encounter Today program on Encounter Premium. And all you have to do is go to encountertoday.com, sign up to become a premium member, and you get access to all of these resources, and you help us minister to the persecuted church around the world and preach the gospel around the world. We can't wait to see you next time. Head over to encountertoday.com for more information.
All right, guys.
Pressure nozzle has been
Like I said, I didn't realize this was going to be so short. No, they're all back.
Feast of Trumpets is done because it's a 3-day, but we are in the 10 days of awe. What is that? So the 10 days of awe leads up to Yom Kippur, and that is the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. And so if you
Man, they're just ripping us off left, right, and center. Hang on. I'll just do it the quick way. Hang on, guys. Okay, I'll just go to Paul. And wait for Mike.
Five 722-2549. That's our text giving. Aircraft, 4 F-16s and 4 K. Or mutilated or whatever is very difficult. And the reading is very difficult. But that's one of the reasons why I was looking that up. I was looking up to see where that ancient ties would lead you to. And it's all around what they call the Gaza envelope, where that happened. So anyways, you can look that up, all right? The earth is trembling. It surely is. It continues to tremble because you know why? The blood cries out. The blood continues to cry out all over. Gaza, all over. From the Cain and Abel, it still cries out. All right. As we say that, what's happening in Gaza today, there
Shawnee, Trump said that, or did you hear him say that? Or it doesn't matter anymore, AI. Any chance that could have been AI?
I have
Shawnee?
Israel has, the IDF has gotten 700,000 Palestinians to move out of Gaza. They still have 300,000 Palestinians.
Yeah, Talia, people are starting to see, like, yeah, everyone's waking up to him, and not in a good way with some people. And I mean that for our side. Hence, he doesn't pray for people.
Left to get moved out of there because they need to finish Hamas off and get the hostages out once and for all. That's another thing that happened at the UN. Trump has a 21-point plan that he spoke over with the other Arab leaders, and they are saying that they think Trump has a plan to finally get the Hamas situation dealt with once and for all. While that's going on, though, Yemen, the Houthis attacked with the drones in Eilat, and 20 people were injured in Eilat with the drone that got through. IDF answered that by taking 20 fighter jets and 65 munitions into Yemen, and there was quite a bit. Let me see if I can find that one. Quite a bit of an answer to that. So I don't see that story at the moment, but that was. Oh, here it is. Well, this is the largest strike yet. IAF jets. So the Israeli Air Force jets bombed the Houthi military sites in Yemen after the drone attack that happened in Eilat. So that's.
She certainly has a statement around the neck. I wonder what that means.
That's what happened there.
Star Reformation.
Strikes on Thursday against Houthi military sites in Yemeni
like
capital Sana'a in response to the Iran-backed group's repeated attacks on Israel, including the drone attack on Eilat a day prior. The Israeli Defense Force says it struck 7 targets belonging to the Houthi security and.
Did they make coinage of Trump and like what you put out there, Shawnee?
Intelligence apparatus and army, including the top military headquarters. Defense Minister Israel Katz said the powerful strikes killed many dozens of Houthi terror operatives and destroyed stockpiles of UAVs and weaponry. Hours later, the Houthis fired a ballistic missile that set off sirens across central Israel, which, if you watch Jerusalem Jane, She posted that, sending hundreds of thousands of people into bomb shelters. The military said it successfully intercepted the missile, and there was no immediate reports of impacts or injuries. The Houthis television reported that the Israeli aggression on Sana'a came moments before it began broadcasting a weekly pre-recorded speech by the terror group's leader, Abdul Malik al-Houthi. The Houthis said the strikes killed at least 8 people and wounded more than 140. On Wednesday, the Houthis launched an explosive-laden drone that evaded Israeli air defenses and struck the resort city of Eilat in the south, wounding 22 people, including 2 men in serious condition. Israel vowed to respond to the attack, which of course it did, and that's how it did that. All right. So we still continue to have the earth trembling, and that's where it did there in Gaza. But my question is, what is going on with the drones in Denmark? Oh, there are some very interesting things happening in Denmark. A night of drone incidents at airports and military bases all over
Someone played a stream yesterday of Denmark and the airport and all that.
Jutland, Western Denmark,
So it's now getting attention.
has not caused any harm or damage, and yet it has exposed the country's defenses as vulnerable to attack. In an era of hybrid warfare, there's a sense of embarrassment in Denmark, a founding member of the NATO alliance, that its critical infrastructure has become so vulnerable. Aalborg and Billund airports had to close while drones were
And guys, that's why we don't watch Paul. We usually only watch him when Mike from Around the World's on. It's just that the first video lined up was so lousy and dishonest we couldn't finish it. So I didn't have nothing lined up to play. So I'm taking the time I'll find something, because I don't want to hear Star FM either, actually. Okay. I don't think Diane's here. Come on, move. Go away then. I thought I pressed something. I know what. What? Hang on. Okay, we're back. I actually like this guy. That's not who I meant. How come it's not loaded? Hang on. Oh, come on. Right, that should be it. Freaking hell, what happened here?
after the Trump administration has fired numerous senior leaders.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Paradigm. My guest today is popular author and researcher Gary Wayne. Gary has authored 2 books, the Genesis 6 Conspiracy Part 1, and recently Genesis 6 Conspiracy Part 2. In this episode today, Gary and I discuss who are the leading families in the world, and we also look at the role of the Jesuit order. This is the first part in a two-part interview with Gary.
That's why I stopped there, because about the royals.
So please, first of all, if you enjoy this episode, give it a like. And if you enjoy this content, can I ask you to subscribe to the channel? And in order to know when the next part of this episode is out, please hit that notification button. Well, Gary, for the third time, it's a pleasure to welcome you back onto the show. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for inviting me back, and so happy to be back, and looking forward to the conversation today as usual, and hoping that again we're going to talk about some things that people may not have heard of or a little bit fuzzy on, and or know a fair bit on, but things that we'll talk about maybe we'll just top that up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like I was just saying to you a little bit before, you've got a lot of information, so guys, you're going to have to strap yourselves in, because Gary's going to come at you with loads of info. It's brilliant stuff, and I would recommend
Wonder where Diane
listening
is,
to
guys.
this episode more than once, because it's definitely going to be information packed. And the problem with interviewing Gary is he has so much to say. You need to really be ruthless in what you want to ask him, because you want to ask him everything. I look at his books and I see the chapters and think, I want to ask that, I want to ask that. But I've got to control myself as well, because there's so much info, Gary. It's brilliant. So obviously you've wrote the second book, and that's out now.
Yep.
And I think the first...
I've got the first book, and I've read maybe 3 or 4 chapters. There's so much out there. It takes, if you were to read it just old school, without a computer, it's just too much to read.
2 episodes we did, that book wasn't out, so we centered most of it, it was around, obviously, your first book, Genesis 6 Conspiracy, and then you've done a part 2. And one of the thrusts of the book is bloodlines, which you talk about bloodlines a lot. And obviously that's important for us to understand. And one of the things that I read often in different articles is like people give a list of these bloodlines, and there's various ones, and there's the 13 families. And I'm just going to read a couple of sort of lists that I tend to find that are the more common ones. And obviously people can debate these. So one of them that regularly comes up online is this list is, so you've got as the 13 families, Rothschild, Bruce, Cavendish, which is Kennedy, de Medici, Hanover, Habsburg,
Kennedy, that's interesting.
Plantagenet. I can't pronounce that properly. Plantagenet. See, forgive me. I'm a simple Englishman from north of England that can't speak French.
Yeah, some of your kings were Plantagenet.
So Rockefeller, Romanov, Sinclair, Warburg, Windsor, which obviously we know is Saxe-Coburg Gotha. So that's one sort of common one. Yeah. And another one that I seem to find differs from that. Some of the names do come in, but one of them that's included in there, people would have definitely heard of it. So you've got Astor, Bundy, Collins, DuPont, Freeman, Kennedy, Lee, Onassis, Rockefeller again, Russell. Now this one, Merovingian, Van Duyn, and Rothschild. So in terms of them lists, how many of them names would you include in a list yourself? Because we've seen the Rothschild's definitely in there twice, and Rockefeller.
Certainly a number of them, and so even with the last list, there are important names on there, but they aren't part of the 13. In fact, anything that's like DuPont or Rockefeller, for example, would be considered pseudo blue blood from North America. And were sponsored by the Rothschilds to be their stable of agents to get U.S. set up to be their attack dog to bring about world government. And so they have been intermarrying to increase their ennobleness, which is very low level, aka the word pseudo, which is not a very nice word, but it's how the purebloods think of the American bloodlines. So anything like DuPont or anything like that, just they're important, but only for the U.S., not for the world. And some of them are new money, like Gates coming in and Musk, and again, similar sort of situations with them. So Rothschild is an extraordinarily important name, but not part of the 13. And the Rothschilds, again, as we said, they're synonymous with banking, and they sponsored the American pseudo blue bloods. Their original name was Bauer from Germany, and they changed their name when they started the London Bank, from Rothschilds from Bauer to Rothschilds, to get a step away from the Jewish sort of connection. So they are important. They are part of the banking arm created by the bloodlines outside the Roman Church, but they're not part of the 13 either. But they've been ennobling their bloodlines for a very long time, but still not in the top 13. So that's kind of, and the Merovingians on the third list is an extraordinarily important one, but you have descendants of the Merovingians that come through the more important names that would be in the 13. And even when you narrow it down to whichever 13 you think it is of older families, there's still some debate on that. Does that include the black nobility of Italy? That's part of the black nobility of larger Europe. And a lot of times you don't see much out of the Julia gens. And if people aren't familiar with that term, that's the gens of the original 100 senator families that produced Augustus and Caesar, for example, as an emperor. That goes back to Romulus and Remus, whose parent god was Ares or Mars in the Roman pantheon. So you have to keep in mind with the black nobility, as what you mentioned with the Medicis, that's a different bloodline than the Julia gens. That is Phoenician bloodlines that migrated along with many of banking and commerce to the Venice and Florence area. They would be more considered the junior black nobility of Italy, but their bloodlines are probably just as old or older than the Julia gens. And then you have the Fabian gens within the Italian one as well. So again, we want to be careful of that in terms of narrowing down the top 13. And, you know, when you have the top 3 organizations of the Royal Masonic orders, you have the 13 families at the top, then you have the 33 families, and then you have the 300 families. And that starts to encompass more of even the Greek bloodline. So the Cretazens is going to be in there, as well as the Albigens of the Royal bloodlines. So Merovingian would have sponsored into them, ennobled into them, and they were considered the most pure and noble bloodline of such high level that even the Roman Church was said to be intimidated from them, and why eventually the Roman Church eventually overthrew them. So they have what they call a Quinitar bloodline that's drafted in. And it's kind of similar to a Minotaur, so a bull type of Nephilim type creature, but it's an allegory for hidden Nephilim or Rephaim bloodlines. And then that's going to merge with bloodlines, and one would expect there would have been, with the Merovingian, probably some De Vere in there as well, as you take the Anjou back to their parent name. They're a junior offshoot of the De Vere, just as the Plantagenet is a junior offshoot of the Anjou, usually through female intermarriage of a pure blood that's doing a second sort of dynasty. And so the Anjou would take theirs back to Plantagenista. So Planta gene is the gene for the Anjou. And so when we look at the Merovingians, they also have Judaic bloodlines grafted in their mythos and their genealogy. So they have bloodlines of King Saul. They have, from the Benjamites, they have bloodlines of David. Some say bloodlines of Solomon, but essentially the same bloodline as you go down David and Solomon. And then allegedly, what they believe, and from a Christian. I don't accept this, but I accept that they believe it. From Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And that's the bloodline that produces the last Merovingian, that's Dagobert, who is going to be the ancestor for Anjou.
Shawnee, the Catholics believe that Christianity is formed in Antioch, with Saint Antioch, they call him. They claim he's a church. So they claim that, when we claim what the truth is, they get it so wrong.
The folk of Anjou from the Lorraine region, Godfrey de Bouillon from the Lorraine region, and Hugh de Péan, founders of the Knights Templar, who become the kings of Jerusalem in that bloodline, that King Philip or
They were the 100-Year War, I think. Planagesta War.
oh,
So King Richard III killed the nephews. That's the guy he's talking about.
as today the King of Jerusalem title. And the reason why they call themselves the King of Jerusalem is that Jerusalem was awarded to the Benjamites by Joshua in the time of the Exodus, and they get that through the all bloodlines. So Bourbon, which is another powerful bloodline, having the King of Jerusalem title, through intermarriage inherits that through the Habsburg Lorraine dynasty. That comes from the Lorraine with that intermarriage. That includes the Anjou of Hungary, and you have two other rival Anjou bloodlines of the Savoy King.
I'm going to have to check that out, Shawnee. If they're saying that, it's worth checking out.
Of Italy, and of the von Habsburg, who vied for the Order of the Golden Fleece and King of Jerusalem title. They're not recognized, but they say they have a more legitimate claim.
Or is that the Star of David? Is that the same star they use in the Holocaust?
So anyways, all of those names need to sort of be factored in as well. So I would take the Merovingians off that list because of the ancient nature, and they sponsor and intermarry with so many of the royal bloodlines, like the Stuarts, which were the most ennobled bloodline of that time, that had not only the Anjou bloodlines and the King of Jerusalem bloodlines intermarried with that. They had all of the Tuatha De Danann bloodlines of the Scots, of the Welsh, of the English, and of the Irish. And then you had the Tuatha De Danann of the Norse bloodlines that also intersect in there, and they became the most ennobled one of that bloodline. And nowhere in that list, as I recall, and it was a lot of names on that list, was the Hanovers listed, which is the name of the Windsor bloodline, right, which has other ennobled bloodlines. So I put 13 names forward in book one, but I recognize that's probably not the complete 13, and some of them may or may not be there. But a couple of things I would say is that I've dropped a lot of names already. Is it's the older bloodlines that we need to consider. But I leave up.
There's only been about 4 or 5 times that Diane didn't join me for streaming. I hope she's okay.
The Merovingians, because they branch into so many other
Come on,
bloodlines. So, Plantagenet is a very important one. That's an Anjou bloodline that also interconnects the presidential bloodline in the US in many ways. But they're the junior offshoots. So I would say they're still part in their hierarchy of an older family. I would possibly include the Romanovs, but not as the Romanovs, because that's a junior offshoot of the Putyanin bloodline of the Scythian Tuatha De Danann Rurker dynasty.
She has the greatest things, doesn't she, Di? Shawnee?
First Tsars, and then with Vladimir the Great, transplants a branch with the Putyanin bloodline that through intermarriage and through a female from the Romanovs, also part of a little bit wider on the branch on that, is a Putyanin bloodline, but because it's a female that is marrying a male from another line. It goes with the patriarchal name of Romanov. So I would put them in there as well for sure, because we have to keep open whether it's true or not that Putin thinks he's a Putinian. So that's why I would leave a crack open there, and that's his mythos that his grandfather or great grandfather was an illegitimate offspring of a Putin.
Show him a little truth and hit him with a lie, Phil. Maybe that's what's going on.
Yannon in the 1850s, because the Putin name comes out of nowhere in the 1850s, and in that tradition they keep part of the name. They're not going to live in poverty, but they're not going to be part of the inner royal family. So I would also say we need the Bruce in there, as it connects into the Rollo bloodlines, which became the Sinclairs and the St. Clairs. So that's an important bloodline that's in there.
Robert the Bruce, Australia didn't exist then, but they existed as the Macintoshes, and they were Robert the Bruce's royal watcher. Watch the gate. So we were his sergeant at arms, or Robert the Bruce I'm talking about.
The Geezer seemingly is another very important one, which is in Normandy.
Hey, Di, good to see you.
Branch of the Rollo bloodline, and likely is as well. So I would be looking to
I just went to Mike.
Include those names out of the black nobility out of Italy. I mean, you have Orsini, and you have several other black nobility that you may want to consider there. That's of the senior black nobility. And I would put the senior black nobility in with membership in the Council of 33, and the junior black nobility, which is more banking and commerce and money, like the I'm trying to remember the name of the not Da Vinci, but the Medici's. They're part of the junior black nobility out of Florence and Venice that may populate as well into the Committee of 300 family.
Look what's happened when you're not here, Di. You weren't here and we lost all the links.
In the larger families.
So that's what I mean, Di. You're part of this family just as much as anyone.
So, but we have to include the Hanovers, I think. We just have to, because of the power that they have, and that they are a very, very ennobled bloodline. And Prince Charles is on record, again, accurately or not, I believe he has the genealogies to prove it, but through the Hanover bloodline of Middle Europa, and intermarriage between the Hungarian and Slavic dynasties, he says he's a descendant of Vlad the Great, or Vlad the Impaler, not Vlad the Great, sorry. And that's who Dracula is based on. And that bloodline, again, according to their family mythology, probably history, they take their bloodlines back to a Scythian tribe that.
I went early before for Paul Diane, but he just had his wife on, so I rebooted it. So I'll switch back to Mike, guys.
Hercules sponsored the Agrithi, if I pronounce.
All right. Where's Paul? Oh man, hang on, guys. Where is he? Right, I'm going to have to find it myself. We just had it there, probably. Got it. Yeah. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going Found it.
Nobody can imagine what they've been through. I don't know if any hostages have been treated as horribly as these hostages. I know there's been hostages in Vietnam, POWs. They were there for a longer time. They were treated horribly as well. Those would have been worse. I don't know. But regardless, this is just horrific treatment of the hostages.
Diane, from where I see it, Trump's starting to look like a bit of a dictator. I got to admit, I heard he got up there Pam Bondi. He bagged her in front of everyone. If that's true, that's really bad of him as his chief of staff or something.
Of course, those were military and these are civilian, regardless. And of course, you know, we can go on and on about how people have been treated through war, which is why we're saying we won't need another war. So that's the last thing we need is another war. Okay. So I have my wingman here. I think he's ready to help me. See, there's his wing. Doesn't have any feathers, but
Is it gold plated?
yeah.
It is, I
He
thought
looks a little
so.
bit rough, guys. Please pray for him. His poor jawbone. Oh, so his jawbone's throbbing. He's telling me. All right. So I put that back up. I didn't get to see it. Went by too fast. What are you breaking about Poland there? So whoever did that went by too fast. So you're telling me something's going on about Poland. All right.
What's going on with Poland?
We're waiting for Mike from around the world. He calls in by now, so I'm waiting for his call.
Polish are good fighters. They fought the resistance very well in World War II. They're pretty good fighters.
All right. I didn't see what you guys put up about Poland. Okay, Poland has urged its citizens what to leave Belarus. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, Belarus is